Mick Mulvaney, one of Trump's former chief of staffs, correctly noted that Trump was a terrible human being many years ago. It is rare for a day to go by without Trump confirming that assessment many times over. Recent examples of Trump's repulsiveness as a human being occurred during his interview by three black women reporters. As usual, Trump comes across as a disturbed and bitter old guy who is incapable of telling the truth about almost anything, but is yet believed by tens of millions of Americans. The exchange that has received the most worldwide press involved the statement that Vice President Harris only recently identified as a black person, and Trump was clearly suggesting that this was done for political gain. In one of the more noxious statements made by a modern former president or a candidate for president, Trump said he had, quote, known her a long time, indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black. Now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black? I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't because she was Indian all the way and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person. As usual with Trump, he starts with a false claim and then builds onto it to reach an offensive conclusion. Harris has always identified her racial heritage as black from her father, who was born in Jamaica, and Indian from her mother, who moved from India to the U.S. in 1959. Trump was the most well-known peddler of the Obama birther conspiracy, and his statements about Harris are just part of the same pattern. It is, of course, thoroughly disgusting, and as expected, J.D. Vance defended Trump's comments as, quote, totally reasonable, end quote. Vance is not helping Trump. His presence on the ticket will create fodder for the Democrat attack ads that merely repeat what Vance has said about Trump in the past that I summarized in a recent video that I will link in the More section below. Ted Cruz calls the press repeating Vance statements about Trump to be a demonization of Vance. Just another example of substituting a pejorative conclusion for a fact-based and reasonable analysis. Trump's campaign managers made a mistake in allowing Trump to be interviewed by real journalists who will ask him tough questions and fact-check him in real time. He obviously could not deal with women journalists asking him tough questions and fact-checking him in real time. The first question came from an ABC reporter who simply repeated statements that Trump had made in the past about black people and asked whether black people could trust him going forward. Trump went into his unhinged mindset, upset that he was even asked such a question, calling the reporter as being part of the fake news, even though she was only repeating what Trump had said in the past, and then complaining about having to wait for the interview. So rather than answering the question, which would be what a normal person would have done in the same circumstances, Trump attacked the reporter. Personal attacks and using labels like fake news, election interference, witch hunt are commonly used by Trump and his supporters and are a substitute by them for engaging in factual analysis and reasoned opinions using reliable information as their foundation, which is just totally foreign to them. Trump will receive over 75 million votes in the November election, maybe as many as 80 million. After having 10 years to read and examine Trump's comments and actions, all of those Trump voters must now be presumed to know the following information easily accessible by anyone willing to look. They know that he made over 30,000 false and misleading statements during his first term, a continuation of making false statements at a similar pace after leaving office, his nonstop demagoguery, his efforts to change or cancel state election results, his unwillingness to engage in a peaceful transfer of power, the excess Hollywood tape, the jury verdicts in the E. Jean Carroll sexual assault and defamation cases, the sexual assault allegations made by other women against him, the Trump University and charitable foundation scandals, his mean spirit, which is frequently on display for anyone to see, his obvious mental issues, his willingness to peddle fact-free conspiracy theories as true, his willingness to needlessly increase divisiveness, his false creation of a genius businessman image starting in the late 1980s and into the next decade thereafter, when he was actually losing hundreds of millions of dollars, his involvement in the January 6th insurrection, the facts underlying the New York fraud verdict, the facts supporting the New York State felony conviction, the facts supporting the criminal indictment in the federal insurrection and documents cases, as well as the facts supporting the Georgia criminal indictment. So it is time, in my opinion, just to quit trying to explain why people support Trump and to simply conclude that they are doing so notwithstanding the foregoing issues that I've summarized briefly above. Consequently, their support for Trump says more about them and who they are than it does about Trump. I will include some citations to previous videos on these subjects and some articles that I reference in this video in the more section below.